Get the cuckoo clock first thing here. That way you know what time it is. Today is December 7th, 1981, and this is Vivian Edith Green Boyle, who was born October 27th, 1907. I had to look back and see when Grandpa was born. Is he older than you? By just
4 years.
Yeah. So, where were you born?
Sleepy Eye, Minnesota.
Is that fairly far from Charles City? Is it up in northern Minnesota, or?
It's about 200 miles or more from Charles City.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I don't know how far it is from, huh?
150 miles.
Oh, 150.
Well, you got your brother in the background here to correct. Make sure you said the right things, right?
Well, I don't know just exactly how far it is.
And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters.
Where were you in that, out of this?
I was,
6.
Let's see, I was 5th.
So you weren't the baby of the family, but almost.
I was the 5th. Tootie was the baby. So, that was that.
And you were saying when I first came here that really as far as remembering back, the farthest back you remember is when you were about 4?
Uh-huh. We came, our folks moved from Sleepy Eye when I was 8 months old. We moved to Charles City. And of course I don't know where we lived or anything else at that time. But anyway, we moved to Charles City. And then when I was 4 years old, we lived down by the Sherman Nursery.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother and my dad both worked at Sherman's. That's a nursery and trees and
Plant
fruit
kind of
and
nursery
plants
thing.
and everything else. And my mother, my dad was a teamster there.
Mm-hmm.
My mother sewed burlap sacks around trees, you know, how
Mhm.
trees just got, and that's what she did. And from there, I don't know where we moved, but that's about all I remember when I was little, about 4 years old. Then about the only thing else I remember is when I was about, I guess there must have been 6. I never started to school till I was 6 years old, see.
Mm-hmm.
When I started the Catholic school, and that's about all I remember is that going to Catholic school, and of course getting up, of course kids would remember getting up early every morning and going to church before school, and then going to school, and
Also, your parents were Catholic then.
my mother was.
Your mother was. And she was kind of saw to it that you got started being raised as a Catholic then.
So we went to the Catholic school and the Catholic church until I don't know how old I wasn't very old because I was only in about 3rd grade when that church burnt down and the Catholic school burnt. And so we went to the public school and
Did you still keep having to go to church in the morning before you went to public school?
no, my mother let us, she never insisted that we go back to the Catholic church, so I went to after that I was about 8 or 10 or something after I got into public school, and I went to different churches with the other kids, you know, how they do, with the Christian and the Baptist, and mostly the Baptist church I went to, mostly because that was a friend I had was a...
Is this house still in Charles City?
Yeah, I lived in Charles City all the time. And then when I was about...
Do you know why your father moved from Sleepy Eye down to...
No, I don't know why he ever moved anywhere. I remember one time my mother said that they owned a little house, and my dad went and sold that house and said, let's go and surprise the folks. when they went
So it was just kind of
somewhere.
a...
That was just what I remember her telling. And she was peeved about it, of course.
Well, what kind of person was she, if you pick out words to kind of describe her?
Oh, she was a very serious person. She believed in right and wrong, and she really... My dad wasn't that kind of a guy. He just was
Kind of
the
easygoing?
biggest way to express him would be a hillbilly, because he was just happy-go-lucky and never worked much at all. That's why we were so poor, because he never kept a job over, well, I don't know how long a job he never kept, because he's not very often. He was always, just a laborer. He worked, you know how they do.
Kind of here and there.
Another way. My mother worked all the time when she could get work. She done sewing and she done cleaning and she done everything she could do.
So she kind of had to take things pretty seriously, it sounds like,
Yeah,
to
she did. She
keep
had-
things running.
Yeah.
Be a pretty
They
hard
didn't keep
worker.
her running very good. I can remember when I was a kid, about 10 years old, I think. Or maybe I was older than that. No, I think it's been more than 10 years old, and I went to school, and when I come home for dinner, we had nothing in the house to eat. So I just took a drink of water and went back to school. And a lot of times that happened, when we didn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was out on a job right then, working somewhere. He helped at carpenter work. And when he came home, I got groceries.
Do you remember your mom complaining about that very much, or did she just kind of not say much
Didn't
anything?
do any good to complain.
Mhm.
No,
'Cause that's just the way he was, huh?
it's the way he was, and that's the way he was. And he didn't complain. She made all our clothes. I never had a boughten coat till I was 18 years old, and I got out and earned it myself. People used to give us old clothes, and my mother made them over. And she used to sole our shoes and make our caps and our hats and our mittens and everything else.
So besides, it sounds like she didn't get a lot of sleep.
Well, I don't know whether, I guess she got a lot of sleep, but
She's a pretty hard worker.
she worked all the time. She was just...
What was her name?
Bouvet.
Mm-hmm.
Margaret Edith Bouvet. She was French. Canadian French.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
Did she have an accent? A little bit of a French accent at all?
She wanted to teach us kids to speak French, but my dad couldn't understand it, so we didn't learn. So we
That
never
was
did
it,
learn.
huh?
And that was it. That was it.
So you moved down to Charles City, you said, to surprise the folks. What family was in Charles City?
Well, no, he didn't move down there to surprise the folks in Charles City. He moved somewhere else. That was
Oh.
before I was born when
I
he
see.
did that.
Okay.
No, when he moved to Charles City, he had his brother Frank Green, that lived there in Charles City. But,
Were any of your mother's people in Charles City at all?
my mother's people all lived in North Dakota.
Did you visit them very much?
No, I
The
didn't know.
Bouvet
I
side?
never knew. The only one on the Bouvet side that we knew was my grandma Bouvet and
Her mother. Your mother's
my
mother.
mother's mother and my aunt, one aunt. That's the only ones we knew. I didn't know any of the rest of them at all. Never have known.
Mm-hmm. And then what about on your father's side, from the Green
I
side?
didn't know any of them either. I knew the only one on that side that I knew was his uncle, or my uncle Frank, that lived in Charles City, and his wife, and Uncle George that lived in Minneapolis, or St. Paul, and Jim lived beside them for a long time.